All right, so I want to show you how to set up a database, a PostgreSQL database in Heroku that you can then use in your Java applications or your processing applications as well, or probably applications that you write in other languages too. So I have navigated to Heroku.com, Heroku.com, and I already have an account, but if I didn't, I would want to sign up and fill in this information, first name, last name. I would use your BVSD email address if you're doing a school project. Role, you're a student, and the other information here, and then create a free account. And I'm just going to go back to the main screen. And I already have an account, so I'm going to go ahead and log in. Now, I have already created a couple of items so they appear on my dashboard here. You would want to click on New and then create a new app. And then you would give your app a name. So maybe I'm making a to-do list application. I think I have to use all lowercase Gazelle to-do list. Okay, there we go. And create app. This would allow me to create various different kinds of applications, but what we're interested in doing today is simply creating a database. So I'm going to go to Resources, and I'm going to come down here, I'm going to type Postgres, and Heroku Postgres is what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Heroku Postgres, and then there are various different levels that you could sign up for, and they all have, I believe these are monthly fees, and you can see that they range in price from free to $2,000 a month. I'm going to go with the free today. Then there are definitely some limitations. Like I think if you choose the free version, you can only have 10,000 rows in your database. You can have a maximum of a certain number of users and connections and things like this. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and click on Submit Order Form. Okay. So I now have this Heroku Postgres database. And if I click on here, it shows me that I have 0 of 20 connections. I don't have any connections to my database right now. 0 of 10,000 rows are filled, and I don't have any tables. I already have a 7.9 megabyte data size because even when you set up the database software, a certain amount of space is already taken up. Okay, so I now have a database, and what I would like to know are the settings that I'm going to need to use in NetBeans or possibly processing to connect to the database. And so they are actually located right here. I can click on View Credentials. This is the information that I'm actually going to need to connect to my database. So now I'm going to go to NetBeans, and I'm going to create a database connection to that database. And so I'm going to go to Databases, New Connection, and I have some options here. This is the embedded Apache Derby database that comes with NetBeans, but there are also some other types of databases that I can connect to, and I want to connect to PostgreSQL because that's the type of database that Heroku has. And so it automatically points to the correct driver file, which is already installed through NetBeans. This is what I need to connect to the database. And now this is where I'm actually going to enter in my Heroku database information. So I've got a host. I'm going to paste that in there. The port is already there. That's the default port. I've got a username. This was created by Heroku. I could also create different users in the database, which might be more secure. I'm not really dealing with the issue of security here. That would be a big deal in real life. But right now I would just like to kind of get this to work. And when I type that in there, it builds this URL for me. And if I click on test connection, let's see, it tells me it cannot make a connection. Why not? Oh, the database. I don't have the right database entered in there. So let's see, the database is this. So I put that in there. Now I test the connection, and it says connection succeeded. I'm going to click next, and it says select schema. I want the public schema. So this is where the tables that I create are going to be organized into. And the rest of this I can, if I want to, rename the connection name that's going to appear here, I could do that. I usually just use it, leave the default though. Okay, so there are various security issues around what I just did there, but that's okay for our purposes here. It's this one. If I go into public and tables, there are no tables there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a table. So let's create a table here, and let's call it students. And I'll add a column, and we'll do student ID. I think, yeah, sure, student ID. And that would be, we'll say, some type of integer. This would be a smaller integer. So maybe I'll make it a larger integer, int4. And if I want, I can put a default there. I'm going to make this the primary key. That means that every row has to have a unique student ID. The student ID can't appear in more than one place. And it's also kind of the primary value used to access a row. It cannot be null, so I'm not going to check that. And I'll say, okay. And I can add another column. We'll just do last name. That would be varchar, which is basically a string, and you can put, how many characters it could be, maybe 255, and it doesn't necessarily have to be unique. Two people could have the same last name. We'll do the same thing for first name. And okay, and we could put any other information that we wanted here. We could put email, etc. Okay. So I now have a student table, and I can view the data, and now you can see this information popped up with that table's data. And there's nothing in here yet, so I could, I could enter some data. So student ID, we'll just do 11111. Last name, I'll just put in Gazelle. First name, Tim. Email, just do my email address there. Okay, now I have one row in my data. Well, that's pretty cool. Now I'm not going to talk about it in this video, but you can go through the tutorial for creating an application that accesses the database, and you have a database here that you can access now. And if I go back to Heroku, just out of curiosity, if I clicked on Overview, I can now see that there is a table that's been added to my Heroku database, and there's 1 out of 10,000 rows in that table have been used. Now, from Heroku here, there are ways that I can, write code to add stuff to my table or view stuff from my table and stuff like that. But it's a lot more convenient, I think, to go through the Apache NetBeans interface to interface with your table. Now, I added another table before I recorded this video. That is, actually it's right here. And it's got a couple of tables in it, including one called accounts, which I entered some information in there. And just to show you, you can also access these same tables that are stored on Heroku, the Heroku server. You can access them through processing. So I opened up processing, and I had to go to Tools, Add Tool, Libraries, and I added this library called SQLized, or something like that. And that allows me to connect to a database, an online database. And so I had to do some things like setting the user and the password and the connection information in code. And then I was able to basically get here, you can see the accounts table that we were just looking at, and then I've got some code to write it out to the screen. And so when I run this, I can see that it actually prints that row. There's only one row. The same one that I can see here in NetBeans, I can print that out from a processing program as well. And I could also, write Java code in here to make a graphical user interface and access the data from the table and things like that. So anyway, that's how you set up a Heroku database and then access it from NetBeans or access it through processing.